Okay, this is going to be a quick sort of summation of the Artifact 2 Rihanna Giddens song at the Purchaser's auction, option rather. I'm a little disheveled here, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. I just finished one class's submissions, and I was as lenient as I could be. In the future, if I ever do this again with the song, the thing to do would be to get the lyrics. You can get the lyrics off the internet, Google the song title, maybe the artist if it's a song that's been done by many people. And you'll get the lyrics. Sometimes I think they do them in China. They have English, people that are studying English listen to songs and print up the lyrics, and sometimes they're egregiously mistaken. But there were lyrics available for Rihanna Giddens. Okay, the song really is not about the Atlantic slave trade, but it's about the effects of slavery in the United States. I imagine that the ad that she looked at was well after 1808, when Congress was allowed to ban the international slave trade. There was some smuggling that went on after that, usually from the Caribbean, not directly from Africa to North America. But from 1808 to 1860, you have the opening of the entire Deep South and the spread of cotton plantations throughout the South. You need laborers for that. And what happens is that the plantations in Virginia and the Carolinas become, besides growing cotton or rice, they are also raising people as one of their profit streams. They're making sure that their slaves are not only working really hard, but producing children, so that those children can be sold, to Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Okay, something like 400,000 human beings are sold in that way. Sometimes the masters themselves buy land in the Deep South states, but usually the slaves are sold, and then the slave dealer sort of auctions them off and transports them to places like Mississippi, where their first job is to clear the land and set up the plantations. Okay, and that's who this young woman. That's what this young woman represents. She was probably born into slavery, and nobody's being sold into slavery. They both her and her child were born in slavery. Okay, but they're being moved around, and the whole idea is that families get split up when this happens. If you have 400,000 people moving in this direction from north to south, that's 800,000 families that are being affected. They're losing an uncle, a brother, a cousin, a mother, a father, a child, a son, a daughter, all that kind of thing. All right. Now, Rihanna Giddens, is African American. She may be part Native American. I didn't look into that. Somebody suggested that in their submission. But I know she's African American. She used to be part of a member of a group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops, that did sort of old time music, but they were all African American. Okay, the instrument she's playing in the video is what's called a minstrel banjo. It's a banjo that was used in the 19th century in these minstrel shows, where white people pretended to be black people, and in many cases they were like racist jokes and stereotypes and that kind of stuff. But there was also music that they think they got from the plantation, whether or not they did. The banjo itself is an African instrument. It doesn't come from Europe, like violins and fiddles and that kind of stuff. It's an African instrument, and her use of it is to evoke really an old time, to take you back to, I don't know, the 1840s, the 1850s, whenever that ad appeared. Okay. The story itself is basically this: only one person so far used the actual word rape, but that's where the baby comes from. Her owner has taken her to bed as a little child and left her in a woman's world. That's what that's telling you. And she's being sold, and the ad kind of, it's like if you were selling anything. You're promoting its good points. She's smart, she's good at this, she's good at that. And then at the bottom, it's like, there is one thing: she has a 9-month-old baby, but you don't have to buy the baby. And that's the reality for hundreds of thousands of African Americans in slavery. Your husband could be sold away. I had a friend just recently, a couple of months ago, say in a post on Facebook, he said, well, what about all the children born out of wedlock? That has nothing to do with slavery. And I had to point out that it has everything to do with slavery. There was really no weddings, no marriage for slaves. I mean, you could have a ceremony, but there was nothing legally. You didn't enter anything legally on the books. And the owner could sell your husband and sell your wife just as easily as, you would sell a mule. Okay. And in a sense, every child born in slavery was born out of wedlock. It was very difficult, and in some cases impossible, to keep your family together. That makes a big difference between how, like, the Irish and Italians and everybody else was treated. The other immigrants were treated horribly, but they could keep their families together. Right? When you do these submissions, the idea is maybe you look up a little bit about Rhiannon Giddens. Maybe you look about other stuff that she's done. That's not terribly necessary. But get the lyrics and read the lyrics and see them as a document. It is something that, it's not a historical document, but it's about a historical situation, sort of generalized. Okay? A lot of people didn't use her name, okay, which is a little odd. Somebody started off their submission with, she sings this song, blah, blah, blah. And I was tempted to quote my mother, who always, if I did that, she would say, who's she, the cat's mother? And leave it at that. Use people's names. Try to avoid slang. On the flip side, it's not really academic writing, okay? And just be careful about the writing. I haven't figured out yet how to use the correcting tools in Facebook. And if I start using them, I get all bungled up and have to keep moving up, and the scroll bars have to go up and down, and you find the pencil and then the text box and blah blah blah. It's enraging, actually. If I had a piece of paper, I'd just circle or put a little note and stuff like that. It'd be fine, right? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to get to the. Okay, so that's that's a situation in the United States. The Atlantic slave trade is a much bigger topic, and there are things going on in the Caribbean and Brazil that are entirely different. But I did want to talk about this because I just got finished doing it. Two other things. One is somebody sort of started with the like their impression of the music, which is great, but that's not really what we're looking at here. We're really looking at the story and what it tells us about. Perhaps people don't know that this went on in slavery. A lot of the movies and stuff that we see about slavery, the slaves are able to keep their families together, and they're always sort of in close contact with the white owners, the slave owners. And for most slaves, that was just not the case. The slave owner might own a plantation in Alabama, but he doesn't live there. He stays in Nashville or Charleston or someplace, some more civilized place, So sometimes we don't really understand that. And I know a few years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was teaching a summer course on the first half of U.S. history. And I mentioned that Jefferson had put his slaves up as collateral for loans. And some of my African American students were like shocked. They were like, I didn't know you could do that. And yes, it was all of the wealth of the South was basically in land and in human beings. They were very cash poor, but they had lots of slaves and they had lots of land. So, all right, that's it. I'll keep it short. But if I do this again with a song, I think it was pretty successful. I think it got a lot of people thinking about stuff that they probably hadn't thought about before. You want to check out the artist, you want to check out the lyrics, and make sure you know what's going on, okay? Thanks. Bye-bye.